Hi everyone and welcome to Tasting History. Today is my birthday. And so I thought it would be great to make a birthday cake. And not just any birthday cake, but a chocolate cake from Agnes Jekyll's Kitchen Essays, published in 1922. See, I thought it would be fun to try a cake that could have been served to someone celebrating their birthday in 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic, seeing as we're in quarantine in 2020 during our own pandemic. And this recipe from 1922 is the closest I could find. We'll also take a look at the history of birthday cakes and why, oh why, we put candles on them. So get ready to make a 100-year-old birthday cake, this time on Tasting History. To make Agnes Jekyll's chocolate cake, you'll need 1 cup or 226 grams of butter at room temperature, plus a little more for the pan. Then 90 grams of flour, 225 grams of superfine sugar, 115 grams of almond flour, 225 grams of bittersweet chocolate, 6 eggs, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now the icing for this cake is completely optional, but if you are going to make it, you'll need 115 grams of powdered sugar, plus a couple tablespoons of either cherry or orange flavored liqueur. First, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. Then butter the bottom of a 9-inch cake pan, either a plain round cake pan or a springform pan works for this. Then line it with parchment and butter the paper and the sides of the pan as well. Then dust the inside with a little bit of flour and a little bit of sugar, just enough to coat the insides of the pan. In a bowl, combine the flour, the almond flour, the baking powder, and the salt, and whisk everything together. Then we're gonna melt the chocolate, one of my least favorite things to do because I screw it up all the time. You can either melt it in the microwave, or as Agnes Jekyll would have, put it into a heat-proof bowl and set that bowl over a pot of simmering water. This is where I tend to screw it up. If you get even 1 drop of water in that bowl with the chocolate will seize up as soon as it melts, and there is no bringing it back through anything less than pure alchemy. So make sure that bowl is dry. Once the chocolate is melted, set it aside to cool. Then it's time to separate the eggs, another one of my less favorite activities. Put the yolks into a medium bowl, then beat them briefly just to blend, and stir in the vanilla. Put the egg whites into a large bowl, and then with either a whisk or a handheld mixer, mix on medium-high until you get nice stiff peaks. Now that the chocolate is melted and the eggs are separated, you're done with the hardest parts of this recipe. So take a moment, relax, pat yourself on the back, hit that like button, and have a listen to why exactly we have birthday cake. Of all the days in the year, the one they celebrate the most is their birthday. It is customary to have the board furnished on that day with an ampler supply than common. They eat little solid food, but abundance of dessert, which is set on a table a few dishes at a time. Now this is what Herodotus wrote of the Persians in 430 BC, and frankly it sounds a lot like the way that I celebrate a birthday today, with a lot of food and a lot of dessert. But exactly what were those Persian desserts? Well, we don't know. But they probably weren't cake, or at least nothing like we would call cake today. For that, we've got to visit ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, if you were male, sorry ladies, and were rich, oh, count me out, and had political power, and were turning 50, not quite there yet, then you got a birthday cake. Now this was probably a yeasted cake of nuts and honey, and would not be recognized by the greater cake societies of today. But it was, in the strictest of terms, the first birthday cake. But seeing as like 99% of the population didn't get one, I'm curious, when does a pleb like me get a birthday cake? For that, we look to the Germans. In 15th century Germany, bakeries saw the celebratory potential and the financial benefit of selling cakes on people's birthdays. These were dense, small, single-layer cakes with very little sugar because the ingredient was so expensive then. But if you had any money at all, they became a must on your birthday. Now the cake we're making today is also a single-layer cake, but it isn't dense, it isn't small, and it definitely doesn't skimp on the sugar. So now it's time to take that sugar and put it into a bowl with the butter and cream them together until nice and fluffy. You can use a stand mixer or a handheld mixer or a wooden spoon just like Agnes Jekyll would have done. I was thinking of actually trying it with a wooden spoon, but then I thought, you know what, it's my birthday and I don't have to. Once the butter and sugar mixture is nice and fluffy, add in your melted chocolate and beat until well mixed. Then take a spoonful of the flour mixture and mix that in as well. That's going to stop the eggs from curdling when we put them in, which we're about to do. So add in your egg yolk mixture first and beat those in. Then add in the rest of the flour mixture. Now this should be done by hand because you don't want to overwork the flour or else you're going to get a tough cake. Once the flour is incorporated, take a quarter of the egg whites and fold them in gradually. This definitely needs to be done by hand or else you're going to knock out the air and you won't get a nice rise to the cake. Once no streaks remain, fold in the remaining egg whites the same way. Then spoon the batter into the prepared pan and smooth the top. Now it's time to put the cake in the oven. But hold on, because what we're going to do to the oven is a little unorthodox. In Agnes Jekyll's original recipe, she calls for the cake to be baked in a slack oven. So what is a slack oven? A slack oven is actually a cooling oven. So in the days before modern ovens, you would heat the oven to its top temperature using either coal or wood, and then bake the day's bread at that high heat. The bread needed the high heat to rise properly. Then, as the oven cooled down, you could bake things like puddings or pies or crackers or cakes. So we put the cake in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, but as soon as you close that door, turn the oven down to 250 or 120 degrees Celsius. It makes it so instead of 30 or 40 minutes in the oven, you're going to leave it in there for between an hour and 15 minutes and an hour and a half. So that gives us plenty of time to head back to ancient Greece and find out why exactly we put candles on birthday cakes. Now in ancient Greece, if you were about to pray to Artemis, but you wanted that prayer to go to the front of the line, you better get your butt down to the temple with a cake and a candle. Because in addition to her vast goddess resume, Artemis was the goddess of the moon. So a lit candle would make that round cake glow like the moon. Then once the flame went out, the smoke would carry your prayer up to the lady herself. Now if you want your candles specifically for birthday cakes, you've got to go back to Germany, where the birthday cake craze hit its peak in the early 18th century with Kinderfest. Kinderfest, or child party, was the beginning of children's birthday parties. The morning of your kid's birthday, you'd take out the cake and put a candle in for each year that they were alive, plus one more in the hopes that they make it to their next birthday. How bleak. Throughout the day, the family would keep the candles burning, switching them out as needed, because it was thought that the flames kept bad spirits away, and it was thought that evil spirits had higher accessibility to a person on their birthday. But once dinner had passed, I guess all the spirits lost their power, and the kid could blow out the candles and eat his dessert. Now I'm not a child, so I wouldn't have been part of that cake tradition. But adults were about to get in on that candle-covered cake convention when in 1746, Count Ludwig von Zinzendorf celebrated his birthday with a cake as large as any oven could be found to bake it, and holes made in the cake according to the years of the person's age, everyone having a candle stuck into it, and one in the middle. It's said that the cake was in the shape of a giant L, and he had 2-foot-tall letters sticking out of it to spell out the name Ludwig. I want that for me, and my name is only 3 letters. But again, I probably would not get that because I am not a German count. Instead, I'll have to wait until the Industrial Revolution makes it so ingredients are cheap enough for everyone to get a birthday cake. Now, just like Count Zinzendorf, people loved to have writing on their cakes, albeit not 2-foot-tall letters. Now, the cake probably wouldn't have said happy birthday, because that phrase didn't become popular until the song was recorded in 1912. Instead, you would have had something like, many happy returns of the day. Not quite as pithy, but it works. It was the Victorian age that also brought us the convention of colored icing on cakes, often made red with beet juice or green with parsley. And that's why I'm choosing white icing, which is what's called for in this recipe. Now, after about an hour and 15 minutes, the cake should be ready to take out of the oven. The cake will either pull away from the sides of the pan, or if you stick a wooden skewer in the middle, it should come out clean. Take the cake out of the oven and set on a wire rack, allowing to cool in the pan completely. Once cooled, take it out of the pan and remove the parchment. At this point, it's either ready to eat uniced, or time to make the icing. For that, all you have to do is take your confectioner's sugar and whisk it with the liqueur until smooth. Then spread across the top of the cake. Then we light the candles, wish ourselves a happy quarantine birthday, blow them out, and cut our cake. Now let's see how this 100-year-old cake tastes. Very chocolatey, which I love. Delicious, light, not too dense. Kudos. Thank you, Agnes Jekyll, for a wonderful birthday cake. Now please, look away while I intend to eat this entire thing by myself. And I will see you next time on Tasting History.